Welcome to the Inspection Empire Builder podcast. On today's episode, we're talking about the women in IEB and the women in a male-dominated role. So today, I want to welcome you guys. How you guys doing today?
Fantastic. Thanks for having us, Matt.
Doing
Absolutely.
good.
Good. Okay. So I need you guys, we'll start with Lindsey. Obviously, who are you? Where are you located? And how are you involved in the inspection industry?
I'm Lindsey Lundholm. I'm located in Washington State, so Seattle side of things. And I own an inspection company. I am a second generation owner, so I've been around a lot of inspectors for the last 17 years.
Love it. Okay. And Jaymie.
I'm Jaymie. I started out as a licensed home inspector in New Orleans 16 years ago. It's been a journey. And
Wow.
I have owned two of my own home inspection companies. Right now, we're in Metro Detroit. My husband and I own a company called Elevate Inspection Group, where I am still an inspector and also all the other roles that one has in a small business, marketing person and payroll payer and trainer and all the things. And my husband runs it with me.
That's awesome. Love that. All right. So you guys are both in what would be typically a male-dominated industry. Most trades are plumbers, electricians, whatnot. You get into home inspections, same thing. It's very much a trade, and it's very much a male-dominated industry. But both of you women have worked very hard in the industry to set yourself apart. I know that there's roadblocks and hurdles you have to jump over to be able to be as successful as you guys are. And then on top of that, what I love is what you've started inside of IEB, which is called the Women of IEB. So Lindsey, can you tell me a little bit about what is the Women of IEB? Like how did this thing get going, and what do you guys do?
Yeah, so this has been going for like the last 5 years. We didn't start it, but we did get that torch handed to us a few months back. And so we're carrying forward a mission that was really important to a lot of the women in the industry, which is that we have a voice and a place to gather together and just talk about the unique challenges that we might face as women, not just in the inspection industry, but in life and, doing all the hats that we wear. So the unique side to many women is that we are mothers or grandmothers or aunts or friends, wives. And so we carry that alongside of business. And it looks different oftentimes for women than it does for men. So can we have that conversation together? And do we have a space to have that conversation? That's a big part of what's important to me. But then also shining a light on the ladies in this industry. Like you said, I grew up in this. I still live in a household with 5 boys. So I'm around men and young men all the time. And so it's nice to have a spot where we can just connect on a different level with the ladies.
I love that. Yeah. And so as a man I have female inspector and I have had to watch from my perspective, watching her have to overcome certain hurdles and obstacles. But I'm also looking from my perspective. I'm not living it out every day. So I would love to hear from you guys, like, what are some of the maybe hurdles or obstacles that we don't think about as men that women have to overcome?
Oh, well, Lindsey, I think you hit it right on the head when you described why WIEB exists in the first place. And it's really to empower this group of women that's already in the industry. It is pretty few and far between that we find a female home inspector. So that's the perspective I have coming into this group. Lindsey is second generation owner. So that's quite another perspective. A lot of times when we find women in this industry, they are team members or the wives of an owner. That's your first hire when you're a male home inspector and you realize you have this business and you need help. Your first hire is typically pulling your wife into the business.
Yeah. Babe, help me. I'm stuck.
Help me, please. Yeah, cheap labor, right? Cheap, right? So anyway, the perspectives that Lindsey and I bring into this is pretty cool. So when it comes to our perspective in this industry, mine is just as a home inspector. So it's very different. And I think that any kind of obstacle that you face as a female, I don't know that it's any different than just in any industry in the world. Because
Okay.
yes, this is a male dominated field that I choose to be in, but I don't think I've ever, gave a stink about no one treating me fair or like
Yeah.
the expectation is a little different when I go into a home inspection and the dad of the first time home buyer is there, or, the engineer uncle is there. You get a
Yeah.
little look, like, all right, little lady, what do you have to show me? You know the look,
Uh-huh.
but there's no
Yeah.
reason to be disheartened by that. Like, we choose this industry on purpose. We're choosing our hard. So I'm just ready for it. And I think that's probably the perspective of most females that are choosing to go into this industry is, all right, bring it on with all the love and grace and tact and grit and, posture. It's actually pretty cool to just go in there and do our job in this industry, do it really, really well, by the way, and then get
Yep.
that handshake at the end because it's no different. Like if the team
Yeah.
culture is there, then they get what they expect every single time. It doesn't matter that we're women. So
Okay, so I got a follow-up question is okay, I do think women bring a different perspective and it's actually better in some ways as well. So there are some obstacles that maybe you have to overcome with some stereotypes because I've seen it in my own business, right? Like I had an ancillary technician that would show up and she would help out with the home, like your home inspectors doing all the different stuff. And then ancillary would show up. And there was just recently, she was there doing a sewer scope. She's like, I'm going to run the sewer scope real quick since, Rudy's out on the roof. And so she sets up the gear and starts get ready to run a sewer scope. And the client's like, what are you doing? And she's like, I'm going to run the sewer scope. And they literally stopped her and was like, no, we really don't want you to do that. We want him to do it. And she's like, I do this every day. This is
you
what I
want me to
do.
get my
And
hands dirty? I don't understand what the
right. So but they were so adamant that like, this is a man's job. There's no way a woman could do this. And she was like, it was so awkward. She was like, I mean, okay, and so Rudy ended up doing the sewer scope, but it was so awkward. Like it was so like they had such a hard stereotype in their mind of like what is a man's job and what is not a man's job from a customer perspective. But here's what I think, and I'll throw my 2 cents in because I think women are more observant. I think they have, just generally speaking, and I know this is all the stereotypes, they have higher attention to detail. I think women are better communicators than men in a lot of ways. I think there's a lot of things that women just naturally bring to the table that are an advantage. Like, what are some of the advantages that you guys see in as a female in a male dominated industry?
Lindsay, you want to take this one first?
Well, my first thought was if you think about who your audience is that we work with, it's home buyers and it's real estate professionals.
Yep.
And there's a lot more women in the real estate space. It's primarily women.
It is.
And sometimes the women, maybe speak a little louder about their home in some cases. So right there, we've got a connection. So if we are your growth reps, if we are marketing to agents, and if we're the people answering the phone, or if we're the home inspector, I think there's a way that we connect a little bit better right away off the bat. So I think that's an advantage for sure, just that we're now working with our audience and maybe we can connect better than some inspectors could.
I agree with you. I think that is consistent from getting the first home inspection, like getting a relationship with that one agent. Let's say it's a female, and then showing up on site. Let's say a female home inspector does, and let's say the scheduler is a female. Let's say the
Mhm.
follow-up is made by a female. Let's just pretend all that is. I believe one of the things that I absolutely agree with is when we establish that relationship, we're probably not trying to sell them on our home inspection company. We're just trying to build a relationship with this person because they're a realtor. Yeah, I mean, this is a business. We want to grow our business because they're a realtor, but we're probably asking about their kids and we're probably commenting on their shoes. And both of those comments are probably absolutely genuine and they believe us. So nowhere in the
Right.
conversation when we're trying to build relationship with them are we talking about like the home inspection. It's probably going to come up because like they know what I do and we know what you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
then even when they call, for instance, my scheduler is a female. And she's going to ask, even if it's the client, she's going to ask about the house. You say, oh my gosh, I see a picture of the front. That tree is so great in the front yard. Like there's some emotional cues of that sometimes women are just more attuned to. We're like emotionally aware of how someone's going to respond. So we play into that. It's like this fun game that females play, right? And then as a home inspector, we do the same thing. You show up and you're already like the smartest person in the room based on what's going to happen. That's why they hired you, right? So I feel like the female inspectors that I've spoken with, we don't show up with a puffed up chest, proving that we're really smart about everything. Like that's why they hired us. So then we just play out an emotional game. We can read really well. How is this client coming into this? Were they prepared really well? Do they appear to be scared? Are they following us around because they're a little nervous? And as a female, I think you're right, Matt. We're attuned to that. We choose to be. I think we're created that way. We're nurturers by nature.
Yes.
So I think that's a really huge advantage.
I think it's a huge advantage. It's
And can I just speak to that as a shift in our industry? So
yes.
So for 25 years, I've seen home inspections from my father, and he built a good foundation. But the difference now versus 20 plus years ago, less about just technical and find everything that's wrong with the house. And now it's more about a relationship, and it's more about taking care of clients. And maybe that existed to some level, but I've been around enough home inspectors long enough to know that's not the way that it was. Not the majority of businesses operated like that. And so maybe that was brought into the industry by a lot of the women that have stepped in to roles in the companies.
That's good.
I think, and that's a great point too to bring up, that realtors, by and large, far more female realtors than there are male realtors. And then when you really start looking at like title companies and escrow, and you start looking at all the other services inside of real estate, you see predominantly a female driven workforce in these fields and in these roles, and so I see how the relationship side of things, as another woman coming in to the industry now on a different angle, a different side of it, that I think that connection is just there. Like, I don't know if I've ever commented a positive thing on another woman's shoes while at a home inspection.
Yeah, right.
I'll just throw it out there. Yeah, like I'm not going to say, oh, that's a really nice dress. Or as a man, I just shy away from that in general, because as a man, it might come from the heart as a genuine compliment and nothing else, but it can be received from a man to a woman that perhaps maybe gets received in a wrong way. And so in avoidance of like, I don't want to come across the wrong way in this way, I just kind of avoid those types of subjects all around, and so you have definitely a connection there, because I know it's like, oh girl, that dress looks so good on you or whatever. I can't say that.
No,
I cannot. Yeah, that's a sexual harassment lawsuit waiting to happen. Like, I'm not, right.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Really smart.
But you guys get to do that, which I think is awesome.
Yeah. And we also, in the communication before and after, if we get like a text message or a video message from someone saying, hey, I'm at this listing, I think it's also, it might also be dependent on the personality, but from my perspective, I would gladly respond to that with some emojis and some exclamation points because they know my personality. You know what I mean? So I don't know that Chris or Marcus would do that it would be a very different black and white with a period at the end of the sentence kind of text message. And so there's some of those little like care and candor things that we can try and like weave into the fabric of our culture, of our team, based on, Lindsey and I are both owners. So we can inject that into the fabric of our, like the culture of our team, and say, hey, this is something that you should do every single time. And that could come from a female, sure, but it could be taught. But I think naturally, we're probably not going to find that with, the guys on my team.
Probably not, right? And so, Lindsey, how many women do you have in your company right now?
2 others besides me.
Okay, what positions are they in?
The scheduler, right, in the operations role in the office is Jessica, and I have a growth rep that's female, Miranda. So
that's awesome.
And then all the inspectors are guys. I don't have women inspectors yet, so I would love to.
Yeah, we just hired our first home inspector. We have an ancillary technician, but we just hired our first female home inspector. And so I'm really curious to see how well she is received in the community. And I mean, her personality is incredible. So I think she's going to have no problem being received. She's really good with people. In fact, okay, so before I hired her, she was I don't remember, like a coroner, kind of. And so she would show up to crime scenes where somebody was dead, and she would have to collect evidence and write reports, right? But like we're looking at, the quality of the plumbing, and she's picking brain matter off the wall, like,
I
so in
mean,
the world of
that's
like gross,
shift, right? I mean, that's
yeah. Yeah, but she's like collecting data and samples and putting it together in reports with photographs and writing up things. And then she has family members standing outside the house going like, well, what happened? And so she has to be very careful how she presents things, right? And then they're like, well, did they die peacefully, or was it like traumatic? And like, they're asking her really tough questions. And so like, so I'm in my head thinking, oh, this is a walk in the park for you.
Right.
Like nobody's dead, nobody's dying. Like it's just the plumbing isn't right, and it's like, that's like, so for her, she already has all these skills of collecting data, putting in photos, reports, communicating with clients that are in a stressful situation. But everything she was doing is exponentially harder than what we do. And so I'm like really excited because I think she has all the right skill sets for this. And I think she's going to be received really well. And she's so kind and sweet and nice and has a great soft personality on top of it all. And so, yeah, I feel like I hit the jackpot.
Yeah, it's the best of both. That's what we call a unicorn. Don't let her go.
I know. A unicorn. The unicorn came to us. She called up saying, I think I want to be a home inspector. And I'm like, okay. And so we started, yeah. So anyhow, I'm so excited to have my first like full licensed home inspector, not just an ancillary technician. And so,
one of the things,
so excited for it.
One of the things that I think a lot of women, a lot of teams really should consider is even your ancillary tech that is a female, when she went to do that sewer scope and someone said, no, don't do that. Whatever the client's reason to say that to her, it doesn't really matter. But one of the things that I think is important for a team to do is everyone should be on board saying, oh, no, Sally is the one you want doing that.
Yes.
I don't want anyone on my team undermining me, nor me them, because I've empowered them to do this thing already. And if they're the one assigned to that task and, Chris comes into the room and they're like, oh, no, let Chris do it. Bet your bottom that Chris is going to say, no, you want Jaymie doing this, even if he's better at it than me. Like,
yeah.
I don't ever want like a team member undermining anybody else, and not even like alone the female, but like undermining anyone else. I don't care what the client wants. No, you want her doing that. I mean, that's it.
Just absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. The irony is that ancillary technician does way more sewer scopes than the home inspector.
Yeah.
Way more. Way more. Like she has way more experience than the guy. And she's better at it. Like I don't want to throw my guy under the bus, but he's also awesome, but she's incredible. And so it was like the irony of it all. Like they couldn't convince the client to let her do it. And she was like, okay, even home inspector, same thing. He's like, she's incredible. She does more of these than I do. And they were like, no, we really don't want a woman doing this. And I don't know what their reasoning was, right? And who doesn't even matter, right? And that was more of a them. That's a them issue, not an us issue. And you have to recognize that for sure. But but I love seeing more and more women getting into our industry.
Yeah.
I think it adds a breath of fresh air. I think it adds a dynamic that traditionally had been missing from our industry for a long time. And I like how IEB, we have embraced women in the industry with both arms and said, hey, how can we get them integrated more? And not just we're just going to allow you to be here, but no, you're leaders. Like it's not just like, oh, here's the ladies' tables over there. Like we don't do that in IEB. We have women leading conversations, good conversations from the stage. Like we have women leading conversations inside of all aspects of it. And I think we've just fully embraced that in a way that I don't know if any other resource inside of the inspection industry has done it as well as we have. And that's because also you two are leading the charge, or I guess somebody else carried it for a while now. You guys have taken over, but you're leading the charge now on how do we become more inclusive and how do we get more women and bring all the valuable assets that women bring to the table, because it's going to make all of our businesses better.
I agree with you. Lindsey, tell them about the at Unite. Tell them.
Oh, the panel.
Yeah, tell them about the panel.
So yeah, I'll tell you about the panel, then I'll say my other thing. So at our Unite conference, we did have a panel of 6 ladies on the stage. It was fun to be able to just um, MC that conversation, and we brought a couple from each department. So we had Jaymie was up there representing as an inspector. So we had a couple of ladies representing services, operations, and growth to just show that we are in all of the departments and
Mhm.
this is what we do day in and day out. And we could ask questions and teach the audience from the very beginning of like starting out company to, multi-million dollar companies. These are the things that we're doing to be successful. So it was really fun to have the women representing in a good way up on stage with that many, many ladies. But I'm just thinking it's about leadership. So IEB is really about teaching great leadership. So whether you're a man or a woman, it doesn't really matter. What's true is more people at the table with their ideas and being heard produces a better outcome. So where maybe there weren't as many women at the table 10, 20 years ago, there wasn't that variety of input. It was kind of like one way of thinking because
Huh?
an inspector is generally wired a certain way and they're really good at their job because they are. And
Yeah.
you start adding different personalities and people and women to the conversation, and it elevates the room. It elevates the level of leadership that is present. And where inspectors are great technicians, maybe they weren't the right person to lead the company, right? Not that
Yeah.
skills can't be developed, but you get more people with different personalities, different strengths in the room, all together collaborating. You're going to get better stuff out of the end. So
Absolutely. And we do have a strong leadership culture inside of IEB, and we develop leaders. Like that's something that we do, and that and people do, and that's something we encourage. And yeah, it's leadership is something we really thrive on. And you're right, that's men and women. It doesn't. There's no gender difference. If you're a good leader, you're a good leader, and you can develop leadership skills and grow in your leadership. And I love how IEB has done such a good job of creating that space for everybody to be at the table.
It's one of the things I love about IEB. We joined back in 2019, and it was the immediate abundance mindset that was across the board with everyone that we met. There was
Yes.
no playbook that was closed to us. We met, owners from a $10 million a year home inspection company that gladly shared all of their failures and major excelled projects with us and said, here, this is what you need to rinse and repeat. And here, this is what you should probably cut. And I didn't have to make those mistakes because they just told me, and it was awesome. So
Yeah.
the way IEB is laid out is where we get into these groups where you're a certain revenue or a certain size team, all the way from just a one-man shop, just kind of launching their business, up to enterprise companies who not only own home inspection, but other companies either tied to or outside of, and they have their own small group, if you will, conversations where they share their playbooks and really hone, like iron sharpens iron, right?
It does. Yeah.
One thing I love about UIEB that eventually came along, which was brilliant, is that it's all the women from every company, and it doesn't matter the size. And we get together every single month, and there's always a different topic, and it covers all of us, no matter the role in our company. And I think that's super sweet spot.
That is really, I like that too, actually. Well, it's like an all call. We have those all calls where literally anybody can come on the call. But those are some of my favorite calls that we do within IEB. But yeah, the different size of groups is awesome because, if you're just getting your business started, there's certain hurdles you got to overcome and get past. And you got to learn how to master some skills like pretty quickly to get your business launched and going. And sometimes people launch their businesses and they're just great technicians, but they don't know how to run a business. And so that launch level helps you get the business side dialed in, whereas you move up a couple different levels. It's like, well, now you have 4 people on your team or 5 people on your team or 6 people. You're dealing with some different issues. You're not dealing with, because if you're a launch level, you don't have to deal with employee management, because if something's not going right, you just look in the mirror and tell yourself to stop it, like, and whereas if you have multiple people, now you have employee management, which adds a whole nother dynamic of running your company. And then when you're right, you to the very top levels of the groups, some of these guys are in multiple states. And they have teams in different states, and then they have ancillary businesses that are also connected to it. And so they have multiple businesses, multiple states, and that's a whole nother set of challenges too that you have to deal with there. So it's really great that we put people in rooms, in groups, in clusters, and that way people can get real conversations that are helpful and beneficial, because the launch guy sitting in the room with the enterprise crew, I don't need to know, as a launch guy, I don't need to know how to run a 4-state operation and how do you streamline your bookkeeping and CPAs to work together. Like that isn't a conversation you have to deal with, but you want to be in the room with the right room when you're dealing with the stuff you got to deal with. And I love that about IEB. I think it's pretty incredible. I've been a part of a lot of mastermind groups over the years. And this one is the most organized, the best led, best leadership. Everything about this mastermind group is the best I've ever been in. And I've probably been in 10 different mastermind groups in my life. And this one is just incredible. Yeah.
I was just thinking there's like secrets to the success of a home inspection company, right? But nothing is secret. So we can share those little tips, tricks of the trade, lessons learned by people have walked ahead of us. And we can share them at each stage of business when you're ready. So WIEB is open to that conversation, as is all the other groups. But we've learned some secrets that we're willing to share, right? We're not going to withhold any information, because abundant mindset, we want you to win, and we want to develop real leaders, because that raises our entire industry, right? When we're all doing better business, it raises the people around us and in our own markets. There's not all the inspectors are part of IEB, so we stand out in our own markets because of the leadership and the little secrets we've learned along the way.
Yeah. And it's so great to be surrounded by people like, hey, watch out for this, as you're growing and as you're trying new things and as you're expanding or trying to fix something in your company. It's great to be surrounded by people who go, hey, watch out for this. Maybe you've already thought of this, but I want to make sure you're aware. I know these problems can come up when you're trying to walk through this. Watch out for this landmine over here. There's a shortcut here. It's just awesome to be in a group of people, and we share so openly, and even within markets. So I'm in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and we have a couple of groups now. I think 3 companies from Albuquerque, New Mexico, that are in my city, in my market, that are part of IEB, and we're friends, and I openly share with them. They openly share with me, and it's like, hey, we have an abundance mindset that like there's enough work out there for all of us. So let's just go after it together. And
in Washington, same in Washington. Yep.
Yeah. Is there a lot of companies in Detroit with you guys?
Oh yeah, there are 3 companies that I can think of right now that have been in IEB, and one of them still is. But we would share anything in a heartbeat. And it also brings up, not that I wouldn't share with companies that are with me outside of IEB. If a competitor has the gall to call me for advice, I'm going to give them advice. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do too.
And the reason I think that is whether they're in the same coaching group as us or not. The reason I think that way is it brings up the entire industry in my area. So why wouldn't I want to elevate the whole industry? Like, we home inspectors, there's such a stigma about us anyway, just home inspectors anyway. So why wouldn't I want to correct that by helping, a colleague change the verbiage, or changing the way we represent ourselves, or shifting our pricing structure? If I'm going to be friendly competition with any companies in Southeast Michigan, I'm going to make sure we're all on the same page when it comes to the way we represent ourselves as home inspectors. We have businesses to run, yes, and there's always going to be a chuck in the truck, and that's wonderful. They have a family to feed too. And also, if they were to call me and be like, wait a minute, someone just told me I need to get insurance. What do I do? I will gladly lead them down the right path. You know what I mean? I think that's what kind of weeds out the people that really aren't serious about being a great home inspector. Yeah, so why not?
Right. Got nothing to lose.
I think that's just doing good, right? And we we are about doing good in the world. We're about being good leaders. And that's true of anybody that's part of IEB, is that we've said it a few times, but like leadership matters and doing the right thing matters. So I think
Yeah.
our world needs that a lot, and we can be that light in our own communities, in our own little business part of the world.
I love that. Yeah. And it is great to see women involved and part of that table and in the conversation and being leaders inside of the organizations and even in the industry as a whole. And so it's always exciting to see that. I've been watching you guys as you take over. As a previous leadership, they were leading this group and they did a phenomenal job, but they have other things on their plate and they didn't have enough energy to continue doing everything. And so they had to make decisions of like, what am I going to keep? What am I going to drop? And I know when the transition was happening, it's like, wow, you guys had big shoes to fill. But I got to tell you, from my perspective, you filled them very well. And you guys are doing a great job filling those shoes and carrying on the legacy that those before you laid, and you guys are taking it and advancing it. And so it's really been fun to watch over the last few months as you guys have taken over and started to run that side of the IEB community. And so good job on that, guys. Congratulations on all your success. And it was great to see the panel at Unite. That panel was so informative. And it was so cool to see the different personalities of people coming out. And I'm going to forget people's names because I'm so bad at that, right? But Lambert, I forgot her name.
Dante, yeah.
When she talked about social media and how she uses social media in the marketing, it was like lights are turning. I was just like, lights are turning on. I was like, this is incredible the way she uses social media in the growth of her business. And her business is growing. Her and her husband, there is growing. And part of it is because of her growth efforts are just really pushing some boundaries. And I think it was really cool to see that on the panel.
Yeah, it was. And speaking of personalities, we had like one of our operations people that was on the panel was Linda Reynolds. She's very behind the scenes. She's very like operations, numbers, data. And so she got to share what she was doing that made them successful. And also, like you just said, we got to see her personality versus Shantae's personality, who is in growth, who is very out there, who really wants to gain business for her company by being the center of the conversation. Like that's the whole point, right? So it was really cool to see those two dynamics on stage, and they very much allowed their personalities to speak through the information that they were giving, like adding value to the room. So it was really cool to see the personalities that are necessary in a company to really make a good impact in their department. It was cool.
It was really cool. I think that was one of the most like every session you can pick some gold out, right? There's always some nuggets of gold along the way. I think there were more nuggets in that session than any other session during the entire conference. Because no, for real,
Wonderful.
like I was there through the whole conference, saw almost every single thing from stage. And I think that was probably the highest impact of gold nuggets out of anything that I saw. Like there were some great gold nuggets through the entire thing, but that one was like, because there's 6 people and they're all just dropping bombs the whole time. And it's like, every time somebody opened their mouth, I was like, that's brilliant. Like that's incredible.
I love that. Lindsey and I really toiled and prayed and asked a lot of people for advice as we planned what the opportunity to have the platform was going to contain. And we were like, if we're going to have this 55 minutes, let's squish as much information as we possibly can. So I'm glad that you said that. I hope that we got some great feedback. I hope that everybody else felt that way too. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, and to continue to carry, because this was the first conference session where you guys were running it from the transition from the previous team running it, right? Yeah, and what a great way to show like, hey, you guys are building on the foundation that was laid before you, and you are continuing to grow it. And I was really impressed. To be honest, I was like really impressed. I was like, that was really one of the highlights of the last conference. So good job for you guys on that.
Matt, thank you. One of the cool things about the panel too was that it really allowed us to show what it is that we even talk about in our WIEB monthly calls. So on the first Thursday of every month, we get together at 10 o'clock Central, I think. And all the women, we could have 2 people show up. We could have 100 women show up. And we always have a speaker. Sometimes it's Lindsey or myself, but more often than not, it's someone else from the IEB community. Like one coming up is a woman in one of the companies who runs their operation. So she's talking about leadership, that full circle to what we've been. today, but she's talking about leadership. And it doesn't necessarily mean like come to the call if you're a leader in your company, you're going to get some nuggets. No, it's how to hold yourself accountable, how to start your day on the right foot, if you will, how to lead your family, how to lead yourself. So, really, just like every meaning of the word and tips and tricks on how to actually do that. But one of the things that the panel from Unite led into in our WIB calls is showing there is so much incredible wisdom in the women in this industry. So to be able to on a call once a month and like really get some of that impactful wisdom from one woman at a time who's rocking it out in their own company or in their own household is super beneficial. And we've had topics anywhere from like this leadership and operations back to we had a girl talk about personal brand. Like, how do you even determine what your personal brand is? Because we all show up authentically and transparently, at least we try to, unless we're not in
Right.
alignment with ourselves. And we even have conversations about what we just did that, Lindsey, right? To start off the year, alignment with yourself, really kind of recalibrate and get clear on who you even are as a person. That way, when you go into your job or when you go into your household, you can authentically be that person confidently. So it's not always about the next fancy flashlight. we want the women
How
in
many
it.
lines of resolution is your thermal camera, right?
Yeah.
Nobody
You
cares.
know,
That's not.
Yeah, nobody cares. And nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Nobody cares. But we want to empower the women in this industry to show up authentically and confidently and really have an impact in the role that they've chosen to have and that they've worked really
Yeah.
to have in their business.
That's amazing. Okay, so I know there's a lot of men that listen to the podcast and women that listen to this podcast. And we are one of the top ranking podcasts in the industry. And so we have a massive reach, thousands and thousands of people every single episode. And we have a massive reach and we're helping elevate the industry just one episode at a time, which is so much fun. But if somebody's listening and they want to get a hold and they're like, you know what, I need to learn more about Women of IEB, what's the best way for someone to reach out and get a hold of either one of you guys, or like, what's the best way for someone to say, hey, I need to learn more about this?
I think that they can shoot us an email. So they can just support at iebcoaching.com. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yes. And that's probably the fastest way to get connected. And we can get you looped into IEB, and really take your business and your own leadership skills to the next level. It starts.
That's awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for being on the show. This has been a phenomenal episode, and I look forward to seeing you guys soon on some more calls.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank
It was
you, Matt.
so much fun.
All right. Bye.